Sam Shinerock, you are an estate agent and letting agent of 15 branches and been given the title as the UK's most opinionated agent. What's your opinion on how politics in the 21st century is affecting the property market and how it's going to screw up everyone's life, including agents?
Well, thanks, Chris. That was a great intro.
Well, let's be frank, mate. You're always giving some great opinions on the EA today.
It is true. So, the way I see it is this: in the old days, politics was about persuading the population that your point of view was worth listening to. So it wasn't about working out what other people thought, what the population thought, and then actually working out how to catch their votes. But the problem we've got is that since the internet, that's exactly what's happened. We've gone from a persuasion politics to a taking the temperature and algorithmic vote catching politics, where we
Focus group politics.
Yeah. So we find out what people want, and then we find out who will vote for us if we do a certain policy, and then we create that policy around catching those votes. And we're not looking very long term, so we don't really care what damage we do. We just think, okay, can we get into power using this? And I mean, asking people, so for example, if I was a brain surgeon, yeah, and I said, right, well, I'm going to ask 100 patients how they want me to carry out the operation, yeah, and then I'm going to build the operation around what they tell me.
But that's what I pay you for.
Well, exactly. I'm a brain surgeon. You know, my qualification is in brain surgery. Okay, my qualification is in politics. I'm a politician. So what my job is to be good enough to explain the issues to you, to go through and compare and contrast the various alternatives, to explain what the benefits are of those various alternatives and the drawbacks, yeah? To give you a balanced presentation so you can then make an informed decision. But, you know, you can't make an informed decision about something if you don't have those arguments put to you in the first place.
So politicians are being very reactive and not proactive.
Well, they've got a wonderful or a wicked tool, depending on which way you look at it, which are algorithms now. So basically, what can happen now is that if I'm a spin doctor, I can go to you and I can say, Chris, if you want to get elected, you know, you've got to realise there's this massive constituency of tenants, yeah, and we need to get their votes. And in order to get their votes, we have to demonise landlords, yeah, and we have to demonise lettings agents. And then we have to come up with policies that show that we're serious about it, and then we'll get their votes. But there's no effort being made to explain what the consequences might be in terms of, for example, mobility of labour, yeah, and the vast benefits there are in renting until you get a family house, and how having a mobile workforce has enabled us to move forward in a way we never would have been able to without it. There are just vast benefits to having a really healthy PRS which is balanced in terms of rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants.
But surely, landlords have had it, especially in the noughties, very easy, haven't they? Well, surely the balance needs to be redressed. Do you think it's going too far the other way now?
No, I don't. And the reason I don't is because prior to the Housing Act 1988, there was no PRS at all, really, because it had been wiped out by well-meaning rent controls that had taken it down completely. The fact is that if you examine the real returns that landlords are actually getting, forget the odd blip where it goes up and the odd blip where it goes down, but if you look at the actual real returns that landlords are getting once they've maintained their property, paid their fair taxes and done everything, these are not stunning returns. We are not talking about hedge fund managers here. And it's all very easy to point out that, oh yeah, but the capital value of these flats and small houses have gone up. But that doesn't matter if you don't sell them, huh? And if you intend to live on them, and have them as a pension for when you retire, and then let's say Labour get in, and then they put in a wealth tax, and let's say they sequestrate 5% of your wealth, but because they've done that, your wealth becomes worth half what it was, and then actually you were 50% geared, but now you're 100% geared. In fact, you're 5% in negative equity. You can see how meddling with free markets can have utterly devastating consequences. And I think we are we are faced with that.
What can we do as an industry to change that and mitigate those issues? I mean, obviously we've got Kevin Hollyrake in the Commons, but one man can't change anything, you know.
See, I think
Is it Arla's job? Is it?
I think that the housing market is pivotal to people's psyche. I think it controls people's, whether they're motivated. I think that we as an industry are very poor at defending ourselves.
Well, let's be frank, Simon. We hate each other. We don't trust each other. You know, primarily the estate agency industry is 1- and 2-man band operations. You know, you can't even get everyone in the room together, even being courteous to each other, let alone everyone coming together and being at one voice.
I agree with you, and I think that it's completely impractical to think that you would ever get all
Why?
of
Because
these
there's
people
plenty
in
of
one
other
room.
industries where everyone comes together, even though they're in competition.
Like what?
Well, Australian estate agents. I mean, if you actually talk to them, there's a lot more passing of leads and things like that, and just everyone coming together, moving the cause together.
Okay, so I've lived in Australia for about a year,
Okay.
on and off, not in one go, in Perth, and one of my best friends over there is an estate agent,
Okay.
and I've had a deep insight, and also Ian White is somebody I know quite well, and he has had a lot of time in Australia.
So is my perception wrong then?
Well, what I would say is they're much better at organising, but they also have a much more clear and well policed framework to work within than we do.
But you said earlier on that you were anti-regulation.
I did, and the reason I said that was because the type of regulation that we are suggesting, would be counterproductive. What I also said was that if we had a driving test type qualification for principals, that would be a good thing, and I stick by that. But no, I think that if anything, the current framework is both cumbersome and ineffective and conflictory, and I think it needs to be simplified. I don't think it needs to be swept away and replaced by something even more complicated and even more counterproductive. But I think that in terms of estate agents competing with one another, that one of the reasons that
Because everyone stabs each other in the back.
well, I wouldn't say everybody stabs each other in the back, but if you're in a market where there's 20 local competitors and only 3 can ever be really successful, then it is the survival of the fittest, and we can't get away from that. And I think that's good. I don't think that's bad. I think that's good.
That's free market economics.
It's good for the consumer. It's good for everybody. But like I said, there's always a yin and a yang. You know, we can't go to nirvana. Why? Because we can't even get our police right. How many times have you heard a politician make these promises that we're going to improve the health service, we're going to improve the police, we're going to improve defence, and then 20 years later, they're saying how it's been awful for the last 20 years. It's just,
I mean, we can't even organise ourselves. And you know, would it be a great idea if we'd been to the portals and came up with a brand new portal where we all came together and it was like a mutual? That'd be a brilliant idea, wouldn't it?
Mutual interest, it can very easily turn into market manipulation, very easily. And as we've seen from the scandals that have been there, when I first started out with Choices, the local paper got together with the local agents to try and ban us from their paper, and they had meetings about it. And back then it was the Monopolies Commission, I think it was. And I was lucky to speak to the right person and get the right letter, and I managed to stop all that. But I had to actually employ a private investigator to go and be at those meetings so that I got some evidence that they were actually taking place. And in fact, the newspaper backed off immediately. They realised what could happen to them. And we see 30 years later the same sort of thing happening. It's unbelievable, really.
Interesting times ahead.
I would say so, Chris.
Interesting. Thank you.